If you liked the Milwaukee Forge 6 amp hour battery, well, you're going to love the new 8 and 12 amp hour.
Milwaukee Forge 12 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge. Milwaukee Forge.
Now, before I use these two new batteries, which were sent to me by Milwaukee, New Zealand, by the way, cheers guys, I'm going to push these buttons, I haven't done it yet, and see what we get on the, well, check out this video up here if you want to know what I'm about to do, what I'm talking about. If I hold this down, you'll see it does some weird stuff. And I want to see if these ones do it, and I want to see what numbers they have set on them to begin with before I put them on a charger or on a tool. This tells you some things about your battery, about the use of your battery. It's quite interesting. So do these two do the same? Let's just see what they've got going on here first. 1 bar, never been charged. And now if I hold the button down, what do we get? 0011. Followed by nothing, followed by nothing, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's interesting. So, we know that hasn't been on a charger yet, hasn't had any cycles go through it, hasn't been put on the tool. I know that just from the flashes that happened there. Like I said, check out the other video if you want to know all about it. And it had 4 flashes at the end. This one had 2. Not 100% sure what that last one is, whether it's the factory or batch number type thing. It's a little bit hard to work out yet. Let's check out this one. 1, 1, on, nothing, nothing, nothing on 2 and 3, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's unlikely to be a batch because these two both showing 4 different batteries, so it's not the same batch as such. So have they come from the same factory? Well, more of that maybe in a future video, and then in the one I've already done, of course. Let's now look at what happens when we put one of these batteries on a tool. So we've seen what the lights do before we put a tool onto the battery. I've got the newest Milwaukee Drill here. We're going to chuck that on, see if anything changes. The lighting isn't that great in here today because I've got it down a bit lower just so we can see these lights better. Right, tool is connected. There is power getting to the tool. Has anything changed? Hold it for about 2 seconds after that goes off, then you'll get everything. And I was talking and I missed what it just did. Damn it. I'll have to go through that again. You saw it probably, and I missed it. Anyway, that one won't change. It's only that first one that should change. Okay, didn't change. As soon as I pull the trigger on this thing though, I'm expecting it to change. So here we go. It has now been used. Let's see whether it's changed or not. I'm expecting it now to be off, on, unless it's different to the other ones that we've tested before. And there it is. There it is. 0101. So, all the others will still be blank. If I now chuck this on the charger, as well as the first one being changed, the second one will start counting and the third one will start counting. One of them will count how many days this has been since it was first charged, so that'll only be 1, of course, but that probably won't kick in until tomorrow. It has essentially a timer in it, so it will count every single day that you've had your battery. So if you take it into Milwaukee, they'll know exactly how many days it's been since you first charged it. And the other number will be the charge count, which of course will go up every time you put it on the charger. Whether it charges it or not, as soon as the charger recognizes it with these Milwaukee batteries, it will add a charge to it. So if you go on and off, bang, 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 they'll think you've charged it 10 times, even though you may have only charged it once. Anyway, let's chuck it on a charger and get these things charged up so we can use them. Actually, before we charge them up, let's have a look at the construction of them because they're quite different to other Milwaukee batteries. So there are some very noticeable differences between the older school batteries and these new Forge batteries. The biggest one being, or one of the biggest ones, the standard batteries or the high output batteries, all the batteries sort of up to this date have the screws through the bottom to hold them together. So the screws screw up into the top here. This is the same, this is the same, this is the 6 amp forge. They all go through the bottom. Now that can cause problems. Milwaukee have had problems with these because if you really abuse the tools and give them hell, then, well, this can happen. And that's not good. Nobody wants that. So they've gotten around that by the looks with these new ones. I mean, we'll have to do some testing, of course, but they have screws in the side here. So we're not going through the bottom anymore. We are screwed from the sides. Yet it still looks like, so we've got 4 on each side. So that's already doubled the amount of screws that this Forge battery has, this 6 amp hour Forge, which has only got the 4 in the bottom. So double the amount of screws, but it still looks like it's a clamshell that comes off the top here. We'll have a closer look at that shortly. So they've made some changes there, which is good to see. Another big change, we've got cool cycle written on the top here. When they released the SuperCharger at around the same time they released this battery and went on about it having fans and cooling and everything in it, and I thought, well, it's not much good because it can't get into this battery. There's nowhere for it to get in. There's no vents. There's no way that that fan is going to be doing anything to any of the batteries. Well, they're obviously intending them for these batteries because the new 8 and the 12, as you can see, have a ton of vents on the top which line up with the SuperCharger, and vents all around the bottom, massive vents on the bottom there. So we've finally got some airflow going through them, which is good to see. All tool manufacturers should be firing air through their batteries when they're charging them, particularly if they're going fast, because you've got to keep your batteries cool. If they're too damn hot, you are going to get into trouble. You're going to deplete the life of your battery, or even worse, thermal runaway. God, sorry, the 2 word. Shut up, Tony, it'll be all good, mate. So both of these new batteries have those screws on the side and the vent holes. But there's another big difference that's on the inside that is different to all the previous batteries that have come before, including the previous 6 amp hour Forge battery. These batteries, the high output ones, they run on 21700 cells. The standard old school batteries like this 5 amp hour here use 18650s. Before I go any further, I'll just point out, if you are watching this in one of the Americas and you're saying, that's a fake battery, it's not. I know that the batteries look like this where you live, but in the rest of the world, they look like this. Now, I get comments by people that are not educated. I'm using fake batteries all the time. And as I've stated, the batteries were sent to me by Milwaukee, so they're clearly not fake. And the reason that the fake ones look like this is because they're the most common batteries in the world, and so the fakers copy these ones. Pretty basic stuff. Anyway, this uses 18650 cells. These high output ones use 21700 cells, so just slightly bigger cells inside these, so they got a bit more power than the old school ones. Then this one jumped up to something completely different. Pouch cells, or stacked lithium, which is what DeWalt introduced in these batteries, and then the subsequent 5 amp hour as well. And Flex used that technology too, and that's what Milwaukee used for this, but they have not used that technology in the other Forge batteries. They are completely different. So these batteries use the same size cells that are in this battery, but the difference is this uses tabbed cells and these ones are tabless. If you want to see videos about me explaining all that, up in the top corner and down in the description. But basically, tabless cells can get the energy out of the cell in a far quicker and less heat creating way. With a tabbed cell, there's a lot more restriction before that energy can get out and through the tab. With a tabless cell, it can rush out the ends much easier, much quicker, so it can get the power to your tool. You're not wasting energy on heat so much. You're not causing the batteries to overheat. You're not causing the tools to overheat so much. They should, in theory, run a bit cooler and put out a lot more oomph. So I'm expecting this 12 amp hour battery to smash the daylights out of this battery, whereas I didn't find that this one was really much of an advantage over this one personally. Apart from it is a bit smaller, a bit lighter, whereas these ones should in theory be pretty much the same because they are using the same size cells. There's just different technology in the cell between tabless and tabbed. Unfortunately, I don't have an old school 8 amp hour to put up against this, but I'm expecting this 12 to really kick this 12's butt This one I've just checked by pushing the button there. It's only had 5 charges, so it's a nice new battery. So we'll do a runtime test between these two, and we'll do some power tests and stuff as well. But I guess I better go charge the things up first, and we'll see what changes on those flashing lights on the front there when we bung it on the charger. I've got the SuperCharger set up here, and we're going to see how long the 8 amp hour battery here takes to charge from factory flat.
Milwaukee
Let's
Forge,
go.
6 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge, 8 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge, 12 amp hour battery.
Okay, we have just kicked over into the solid green light, and there we go, fan has turned off, and we're at 38.5 minutes for that. Oops, what am I doing? 38.5 minutes, 8 amp hour battery. What do you reckon? Seem alright? The 6 amp hour does it in about 22 to 25 minutes. Being that it's the first charge, they often take longer, and it will also, of course, vary depending on how hot the battery is when you put it on there, what the ambient temperature is in the room. It's around 20 degrees in here at the moment. So place your bets. How long for the 12 amp hour? If the 6 takes about 25, this takes about 38, what are we looking at? 50 presumably? That sort of thing? You can't probably compare it too much with these, seeing as it is slightly different battery cells and that. But let's give this one a whirl and see how she goes. But before we bung that on the charger, we better check what happens when I push the button on here. So I've got the extra lights on now, but hopefully you can still see it. Right. 0101. Nothing on number 2. So nothing else changed. I didn't see anything else there. Didn't add a charge. Didn't add a day. Now, that's what happens. On the first charge, you don't get anything. The day count will kick in tomorrow at this time, and the charge count will always negate the first charge. You get the first charge for free. Anyway, on to the 12 amp. Okay, here we go again.
Milwaukee Forge, 6 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge, 8 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge, 12 amp hour battery.
And there we have it. That's a bit of a shock. Are you going to stop, fan? 38 minutes to do a 12 amp hour, and 38 minutes to do an 8 amp hour. Say what? Well, like I say, when you first charge batteries, things can be a little bit odd. Let's now drain this. Let's turn it off for a second. Let's now see how that battery goes runtime wise versus that battery. But first, I guess I better charge this battery. Okay, before we chuck these batteries on the vac to test them, let's just see how many volts are going through these things. Should be in the low 20 range. So what we got? 20.72, perfect. And the Forge is 20.75. Cool. They are basically the same. So these batteries are both charged now, and they've been sitting on the bench for the past 24 hours. So let's just check this before I do my next test. That'll be 101, of course, and the next one should have changed. 1. And the next one, nothing yet. So it's still that first free charge, and that other light that's showing is the fact that it's now been 1 day since this was first charged. More information about that, of course, like I said, up in the top corner. Right now we're going to do a runtime test. We're going to put these two up against each other, see if there's any difference in the runtime. I'm going to put them both on the 36 volt vac, so in theory they should drain evenly, and we'll see if one of them has anything left in the tank when that vac cuts out. I'm going to bung this on full whack and run it until it runs out. Might go and vacuum my workshop. Three versus 2, 11 minutes in. Right, 37.5 minutes. Now I can't remember what that is compared to what it was like with the other 12 amp hour batteries. I thought it was 40-minute runtime, but then again I thought it was 40 minutes on the slow one and not the full-on mode. Anyway, the batteries both look to have been depleted at the same time. I'll take them off now and just check the voltage. It's been around 5 minutes since the vac stopped. I left the batteries on the tool for that 5 minutes and I've just taken them off, and I can feel that the new Forge is cooler. It's warmish on the sides, completely cold on the bottom. The 12 standard high output is much warmer on the sides and much warmer on the bottom. Let's have a quick look with the heat gun here. Looking at around 38 degrees. Ambient temperature today is around 20 degrees. And 33 to 34, yeah, mostly around the 33 mark on the Forge. Just looking at them there, you can see big difference. Let's look at the bottom. Forge here on the right, you can see the vents, you can see the heat coming out the vents there, hovering between 25 27 degrees, and the standard high output without the vents looking at 37 degrees, 36 37 degrees, so 10 degrees cooler on the bottom of the Forge. 15.89 on the Forge, completely drained. These will be around close to 21 when they're fully charged. 14.3 on the standard high output. So this is drained down a bit lower than the Forge, but they both did drain completely down at basically the same speed, which is what you would expect because they're both 12 amp hour batteries. The tabless cells aren't going to give you more runtime. There's only one company that seems to be stating that. With the Makita ones, no extra runtime. A 4 amp hour battery is a 4 amp hour battery, a 12 amp hour battery is a 12 amp hour battery. The runtime, that's basically your runtime guide, okay? So 12 amp hours means if you're running this at 12 amps, it'll run for 1 hour. If you're running it at 1 amp, it'll run for 12 hours. Okay, that's how they get those numbers basically. And the reason you would buy tabless cells over tab cells isn't for more runtime. It's for longer battery life because they don't get as hot, more efficient. In theory, according to the manufacturers, you get more cycles. They run cooler, as you've just seen, so yeah, better for the battery. From my other testing, they are slightly lighter as well. I haven't checked these ones yet. They've changed the case and stuff, so it's a little bit hard to tell. But I know with the Makita ones, definitely the tabless cells themselves are lighter. And most importantly, they provide more power. Should get a lot more power with this than this. I just looked it up on the Milwaukee New Zealand website and they claim 50% more power than this. That's a massive jump. Anyway, I need to chuck these ones back on the charger now. But before we do that, is anyone interested in seeing what's on the inside of this? Do you want to see what cells are in here? You want to see the construction of this versus a standard 12 amp hour battery? Well, I don't care if you do or not, because I do, so I'm going to do it. And the best time to pull them apart is right now when they are flat. This is definitely the best looking Milwaukee battery I have seen. Look at the way these are connected. Oh, very nice. The board, pretty small. Nowhere near as big as the boards from some brands. So that is the inside of the Forge battery. The plastic here is PA66 with 25% glass, and we've got some TPS Sebs overmolding here. That's this rubbery stuff on the bottom. It is also on the top of the battery itself here where you would normally push here, which is not working of course because it's not connected to the battery at the moment, but it's all molded into the plastic with the TPS there, and I'm a little bit worried those are going to wear off with time and you'll end up with a hole there, but they are much nicer than the ones that are on all the previous batteries. The lights are easier to see and the buttons easier to push, and overall of it just sort of blacked out look there just looks so much nicer. So the improvements on the battery construction has these long screws that go straight into that point there and this point here at the top, both sides of the battery. On the bottom we have smaller screws which go straight in down here and here. So that helps hold everything together. This isn't loose inside a clamshell battery pack. Basically it's all locked together, which is good, and it's going in through the sides instead of the top. Should prevent the tops from coming off like some people have experienced. Now we of course know these are tabless cells, and they are Ampace JP40 cells, which are of course 21700 cells with a 45 amp continuous load and 60 amp peak. Now there is 3 rows of them, as you can see. Each row of 5 makes up 18 volts. So wait on tools, if that's 18 volt and that's 18 volt and that's 18 volt, isn't that a 54 volt battery? Well, it would be if it was a flex volt battery from DeWalt, for instance, but this is 18 volts in series, and then they're paralleled up with another 18 volts and paralleled up with another 18 volts, so you still get 18 volts of power, but you get extended runtime with every extra row of cells. The 8 amp hour battery, the Forge, that will be 2 rows of these same exact cells, and if they did one with just 1 row, which they could, it would be a 4 amp hour battery. So same cells, bang, 1 row 4 amp hour, 2 rows 8 amp hour, 3 rows 12 amp hour. And the company that makes these cells have announced that they've got a 5 amp hour cell now, so that in theory would mean we could make a 1 row 5 amp hour, so it'd be a nice compact 5 amp hour battery with high power and cooling and blah blah blah, all the advantages of tablets. Or if it was this size, it would be a 15 amp hour. If it was this size, it would be a 10 amp hour. So there's a lot of cool new batteries to come, one might think. Anyway, let's now take a look at the standard high output 12 amp hour battery. Now I've taken the 4 screws out of the base of this, and this is a very big improvement to these batteries that, you know, may not seem like much just where they put the screws, but if it stops your battery from falling apart, it is a massive improvement. So the 4 screws go in from the bottom and into the top, which just comes off like so. So if those screws get loose inside, remember they're only going into plastic, they're only going into a tiny little bit of plastic here. So if those threads strip out that plastic, then this stays with your tool, and this part of your battery goes crashing to the floor, which is of course not ideal. So taking a look at the top, the board is much bigger, much longer board than on the new Forge, and big copper heatsink on it there. Now to get it out of the base of the battery pack, it won't come out because there is another 4 screws there in the bottom, so I will remove those. So this is the 2 batteries side by side, the Forge here on the right. You can see just the 2 little spot welds on each contact there, well 4 I suppose, whereas these ones have got these square patterns. This one just looks much nicer, even the plastic looks nicer, it just seems nicer. The cells in the high output 12 amp hour are Samsung cells, not the Ampace like this one has. But from what I've been told, Ampace is also who makes the cells potentially that are in here, the pouch cells, definitely the pouch cells that are in the DeWalts. Now the screws that were holding this into the bottom of the battery casing, they're whoppers. Can you see those? You might have to squint a bit because they are some little tiny baby screws. You can't even wonder why they bothered, why they didn't just drop it in there and screw the top on. So I'm definitely impressed with the construction of the new Forge battery compared to the old ones in regards to how the contacts are soldered on and just the overall construction of it, the way that the cells are held, and definitely the way that the battery is screwed together is a big improvement. I'm surprised the board on the top here isn't more protected from moisture, but what are you going to do? This battery of course as well has the airflow being able to go through it, so you can see the cells are exposed there on the bottom so that the air can vent through the base. Big vents there, and vents on the side as well, so that when you are charging it, it can blow through the top there. You can see the vents in the sides here, blows through those, cools the battery. Whereas if we take a look at the old high output, we've got a few little holes in the bottom, not a lot, and nowhere in the top for any air to blow through when you are charging it, the only air gaps being where the contacts are. And the contacts block up most of that. Right, let's put everything back together, charge everything up, and do some more tests. While we wait for those 12 amp hour batteries to charge up, speaking of charging, the 8 amp hour Forge and the 12 amp hour Forge, according to Milwaukee New Zealand's website, both have the same charge time. 38 minutes to 80% and 45 minutes to 100% fully charged. So interesting that they charge in the same time no matter what size, you know? Extra whole row of cells, same charge time. This one, 25 minutes fully charged, so 20 minutes quicker than that. So it's sort of good value to charge this and good value to charge the 12, and you get a little bit gypped really on the 8. Anywho, what we're going to do now is take the Milwaukee Gen 4 hammer drill here, and we've got a 35mm bit in it there. Oh, nice booty bugger. And I'm going to use the 5 amp, the 6 forge, the 8 forge, and the 12 once it's charged. Just got to drill some holes and see if there's any speed difference. And we'll check the voltage on these before we go as well, just so you know that they're nicely charged up. So the 5 reading 20.14 volts, the 6 forge reading 20.62, and the new 8 reading 20.7. So they're all over 20, so I think we're good to go. Speed 2, starting speed 2, we might have to drop down to speed 1. 3, 2, 1. As I suspected. Let's try speed 1. 3, 2, 1.
Milwaukee Forge 6 amp hour battery.
3, 2, 1.
Milwaukee Forge 8 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge 12 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge 6 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge 8 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge
3,
12 amp hour
2,
battery.
1. Three, two, one. Three, two, one.
Milwaukee Forge.
Right, the gearbox is in speed 2. Let's see if we can do this.
8 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge. 12 amp hour
Overload.
battery.
Right. Do it. Struggling a little bit. Speed 2. 8 amp hour forge. Yeah, pretty good. Maybe just, feels like it's struggling a little bit compared to the 12. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, the 6 and the 8 felt pretty similar. And the 12, maybe just a few more beans on the 12. Let's try a good old-fashioned 5. 5 amp power, top speed. Let's go.
Milwaukee Forge 6 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge 8 amp hour battery. Milwaukee Forge.
As you can see, not happening on the top speed with the 5 amp hour. 3, 2, 1. Let's take a look at some weights. The 6 amp hour high output, 1076 grams, and the new 6 amp hour Forge, same amount of runtime, 948, so it's at about 125 roughly grams difference. This, the Forge, much lighter than the high output. Always good, especially if you're using it on a drill or an impact driver or something small like that. What about the 8 amp hour Forge? We are coming in at 1085. So the 8 amp hour Forge only a few grams heavier than the 6 amp hour high output here, and not much bigger, so you're getting a third more runtime than you get with that in a battery that's basically the same weight and just a little bit taller, just a little bit higher at the front here, but basically the same. So you could pretty much just swap that out for one of those now and get that extra runtime and that extra power presumably as well. Unfortunately, I don't have any other 8 amp hour batteries to weigh, but I do have the 12s. 12 amp hour high output, 1.553 kgs, and the new Forge 1.5, pretty much even. So about 50 grams difference between the old school high output, 50 grams heavier than the new Forge. If we look at the tops of them here, there's a bit of a design change here. The buttons for the release are a little bit bigger on the high output than the new Forge, and this sloped area is a different size and shape, as you can see. Now I just put my hand over the bottom of this when it was charging just a moment ago, and you can feel the air coming out the bottom, just a little bit of air coming out of there. So the fan is pushing some air through that battery. I'm really liking the Forge 8 amp hour at the moment. It's a good sort of size and weight, you know, it's same size and weight basically as the 6, but you get that extra 2 amp hours of runtime, so that's pretty awesome. Same weight, and it's going to run cooler and all that sort of stuff as well. So I'm liking that battery, but I mean, this thing is putting out a heap of power, man. I wanted to put more tests in this video. Wanted to use the plunge saw and the router, something else maybe. Let me know down below what you do want to see, but we'll do that in another video, because I'm running out of time here. Now I know some people are going to say they should have used pouch cells in here, stacked lithium style cells like this one, but why? What's your reasoning? Why do you think they're better than tabless cells? Because the numbers are on the tabless cell side. Not to mention the companies, they're used to making batteries with cylindrical cells, and the cylindrical cells allow for better airflow with this sort of venting system. You could blow air into this, but the cells are all stacked on top of each other. You know, they're flat. So cylindrical cells naturally have to have space around them. You can't bung them hard up against each other, whereas these you can, so that creates hot spots in the center if you don't have all your heat sinking done correctly. So if you're gonna, the bigger the battery gets, the more heat sinking, so the bigger the battery's got to get, you know. So if you wanted to make a 12 amp hour out of 6 amp hour, look at the size difference there. This doesn't really look like it's double the size, but that's cylindrical cells. This is stacked lithium. If you have to put the same amount again in here, this is getting a lot bigger. I reckon you're probably going to end up close to 50% bigger than that battery if you were to use pouch cells, and it's probably going to be more unstable. Now I know Flex have large batteries that they use the pouch cell technology in, but not many other companies have bothered taking it up, and presumably there's a reason for that. Yeah, DeWalt have done it with small batteries, and their 5 amp hour battery is massive as far as I'm concerned. It's a ridiculous size. Let's go grab one. Now these little power stack batteries were great. They're so small, heaps of power for the size of them, but bugger all runtime unfortunately. And then so the 5s came out and we all thought, woohoo, the 5s are here. But the 5s are ridiculous in size. Look at the jump there was from that to that. And look how big that is, you know, compared to a standard 5 amp hour 18650 cell battery. They are just ridiculously large. And yeah, it's, you know, by the time you double that again, like it's a big battery. It's a big ugly battery, very wide, very long, and if you double that again, you're getting a battery. So if you have a look at that, it's actually just fractionally longer than a 12 amp hour Forge, or no, about the same length. But if you stack that on top of there again, sort of thing, the insides of that, you're only getting 10 amps out of that, out of a battery that size, instead of the 12 that you're getting with the cylindrical cells, and you're getting the extra danger of the thermal runaway because of the heat build-up unless you get all of that heat sinking right. And the extra heat sinking, of course, takes up more space. So yeah, tabless cylindrical cells are the way to go at the moment, I feel. And I don't think, personally, we're going to see much more in the way of the stacked cells. Yeah, I don't think companies are going to go that way. In fact, pretty much every company now, all the tool companies are doing tabless cells, and it's a pretty easy swap in a way. They can use the same sort of cases if they really want to, and just swap out all the cells. Bada bing, bada boom. They don't have to redesign everything like these. And I think rather than that style, we'll get different chemistry. So more like, you know, salt cells or something like that. So we'll see. Time will tell what batteries, you know, it's always changing. Anyway, I think that's enough for this one. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of these batteries down below. If you've got one of the 8 amp hour, like high outputs or something, let me know how you find it compared to this. And if you've got any of the other ones, just let me know. What do you reckon down there? Do you love the Forge batteries? Do you think they're overrated? Let me know down below. Cheers for watching. Cheers Milwaukee for sending me these batteries. And I'll see you all next week on a big one. There will be some testing on this battery, at least in the next video. I've already filmed that, and that'll be out next week. Cheers guys, and don't forget to hit the like and all that stuff, unless you hated it, in which case you don't have to push like, you can push the other one, whatever, up to you. But if you want to see more videos on anybody from any platform on YouTube, hit the damn like button. Cheers.